This is the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and this week I'm joined by Miff and James as we cover all things Celtic. James, your cliched game of two halves against St Johnstone on Sunday. What's your initial response to that one?
Certainly a game of two halves. My question is, how did they get to turning in such a poor performance? You know, what did they think to put themselves in a frame of mind that they were just going to get the 3 points by turning up? They were so poor. If you looked at the stats between first half and second half and chances created, there's not actually that much difference, but in terms of dangerous chances, it's like 20% to 80%. It's wild. So the good news, I suppose, is that we've got a manager there that can get the reaction out of them, and he certainly did that.
Is that an official subcategory or a James?
That's an official one.
Is it?
I like it to be mine.
I wasn't trying to be wide.
You're a wee bit.
I wasn't.
Miff, you've got some points to make about Brendan Rodgers, so go for it.
Points to make. Hello Tino, hello James, hello listeners. I've got some. That first half performance for me, it'll take me a while to go over that. Really, it was that bad, in my opinion. Some real amateurish stuff which should be nowhere near Celtic. Well, specifically talking about Yang, really. Yeah. But I would also argue the defending for that corner is, we are in big trouble
again
if the identified tactic against us is flood the 6 yarder and launch the ball. I mean, you're pretty much getting guaranteed a goal a game against us. That's big trouble if we don't actually defend that properly. I mean, that is football tactics 1.0.
Yeah.
And we have a highly experienced international goalkeeper who seems unable to move.
You're going to concede corners pretty much every game you play, unless you're extremely competent at defending, and we're not. So let's accept we're going to give away corners. If you're Hibs on Wednesday night, if you're getting an opportunity either from that or a set piece, you're flooding the box, aren't you?
Every time. You know, it kind of went away for a while, but it's been a mark of Celtic for quite some time, and it's back with a vengeance now. I mean, part of it is Hart's age, and maybe the kind of drop in athleticism. He's not confident enough that if he comes out, he's going to connect. But 9 times out of 10, the goalie's going to get the benefit of the doubt in terms of fouls against him and stuff like that. Not always, but most of the time, he's anything in the 6 yard box, your goalies.
We just need to be braver. I don't think Matt O'Reilly's playing most in it as
he's
well.
He's being pulled.
Yes.
Yes. Not enough to make an arse out of the way he did. No, absolutely not.
He's more dangling a foot. When he gets the chance to clear it, he doesn't put his foot.
Brendan Rodgers was asked, listen, we'll get to Brendan Rodgers' comments, and they asked him, was it a foul? And he says, no, we were just weak. We lacked the aggression and we lacked the desire to go and clear the lines. O'Reilly just needs to go and clear that with his head. He's a handsome man, he's got cracking hair, but he needs to be willing to mess it up now and then and stick the head on it.
However, despite all that, the one mark of a quality team is that those players, O'Reilly and Hart, then went to contribute to the victory. So, it would be remiss of me not to mention that, but there's too much about the team that's weak in general. There's a weakness around depth and quality, I would say. Lots of numbers, little quality. I would argue that so basic were the mistakes that Yang was making on the wing. It was leading to breakdowns in play. Again, he did some good stuff, but just failing to take a touch, running the ball at the park, those types of things probably should have been hooked off before he was. And that if we are, as a squad, are in the position where we're relying on guys like Johnson and Forrest. I mean, I'm a huge Forrest fan, but you're relying on him still to come off the bench and win you games. As I'd mentioned yesterday, Tino, when we were messaging in the chat, yeah, some of the things I've seen from Yang pale in comparison to anything that Johnson's offered up in terms of poor quality. Johnson, for whatever reason, he's had that stick beat against him. I know Yang's young and he's came to a new country, he's settling into a culture, but if the roles were reversed, Johnson would be getting hounded out the place. I think if he's back and he's fit and the manager rates him, he's clearly a better option currently than Yang, and we just need to accept that. I don't know if Yang would maybe benefit from a loan spell somewhere to go away and just play football and maybe acclimatise properly. It's been hard for him because it's been start-stop, he's been in and out, but it's no excuse for just not being able to do the basics. And it can't be I can't imagine it's a lack of confidence because the manager's actually starting him.
I think this, from Yang's point of view, just to defend him slightly, I think this comes back again to the poor transfer window. I don't think Yang was meant to be starting games at this moment in time. They've brought him in from South Korea, young winger, inconsistent stats before he even got to Celtic. And listen, you can't account for Maeda getting injured, Abada being injured, Marco Tilio not being ready. But I actually think Yang's been thrown in too early in his development. And to Matt's point, maybe the plan was to train him for 6 months, put him out on loan. Who knows? So Yang, yes, individually he's performed poorly, but I think he's also suffering as a result of the system and the poor transfer window. I just want to get back to the fact that, as opened, or as said in the opener, James, it was very much this game of two halves. Do you put it down to complacency in terms of how the team started the game? Do you think they've just thought, St Johnstone in the league, we just turn up and win these games? Do you think that's set in?
I think that's certainly part of it, and that was Ferguson's biggest fear in football, was complacent players or complacent.
Barry Ferguson?
Kelly Hearts. Yeah. I think it was. They just looked like they were, going to turn up and stick the 3 points in the pocket and head back down the road, and that's a surefire way. There was actually a clip down the rounds this week. Speaking of top quality managers, it was Steen saying my players started to believe that they couldn't lose a game, and he said that's exactly when you do lose a game, when you start to believe you're just going to turn up. We're a better team. We've got better players. We're going to take 3 points or 2 points at a time. Yep. So it's really worthwhile watch just to get at the mark of him. I've
seen the clip and I'll share it. I thought it was great. It was a couple of minutes worth of Jock Steen talking about, his players thought they couldn't get beat, and that's what led to complacency back in the day. And a lot's changed in football, but a lot of the fundamentals remain. And if you go in blasé and complacent in any game at any level, you'll get caught.
To again mention the manager that James mentioned in Alex Ferguson, hard work was the absolute bare minimum they expected. Doesn't matter how bad a game you're having, you can still work hard. And I'm not leveling that at the players, but I think you go back to fundamentals. I think we worked hard for the first 10 to 15 minutes, and then we almost kind of seemed to surrender possession to St Johnstone, and that would suggest to me that if St Johnstone are enjoying an extended spell of pressure, it means we're obviously not working hard enough to go and win the ball back, or our shape as a team is wrong. And that would correlate directly with the anger that you're seeing for Rodgers, because there's clearly something went wrong in that first half that he's not happy about. And it just makes me wonder. The whole thing for me is quite puzzling. Why the hell did Rodgers come back to work with it? You can't tell me he chose to come back to work with that squad. There's just something a bit off with the full thing. We're top of the league. We're clear at the top of the league. It might seem utterly bizarre to people listening in as to why our tone is the way that it is. But I just think, if you think everything's sunny and rosy in the Celtic camp just now, I just think you're being blind.
Yeah, and listen, we are clear at the top of the league, and there's no disputing that, and it's a great place to be. But you also realise this is a week where we've exited Europe again, after a fairly, certainly uninspiring results over the piece we've competed at times, but ultimately we fall short again, and there's an undercurrent at the moment through Celtic of, are we accepting this, and there's a bit of frustration amongst fans. You made one point there, Miff, you didn't want to level not working hard at the players. Brendan Rodgers did today in his press conference. He done the early press conference for Hibs today, Monday, and he said hard work is a prerequisite, first and foremost. So that indicates that maybe some guys weren't working hard enough, and we'll get to a lot of that later in the piece in terms of some of the guys that aren't even in the squad at this moment in time. But lots to cover, so we'll crack on. Just a wee bit of housekeeping. So the final whistle show for that St Johnstone game was recorded last night between myself and Bridal. You can hear that right now here at the Celtic Exchange Plus. We're also back in midweek action against Hibs, as mentioned, on Wednesday night at Celtic Park, and we'll have the usual pre- and post-match shows for that one. Lads, the big talking point post-match was Brendan Rodgers revealing that he was, quote-unquote, as angry as he'd ever been in all his time in management at half-time at McDiarmid Park. And there's a couple of ways to look at that. Somebody queried it on Twitter. Is it not a big concern that your manager needs to come out and actually have that rant at players? Yes, it can be a concern, but it's also the life of a manager. Alex Ferguson, you've mentioned, made a living out of doing stuff like that. Jose Mourinho and various other managers. Your job is to motivate your players. Well, A, identify where there's a problem, and B, motivate accordingly. So I'm all for Brendan Rodgers going off on one at times. You can't do it too many times across a season. It loses its kind of weight. But if he has to do it now and then, Miff, then at least he's done it and got a response from it. The big danger is you do it and the players still go out in the same shape in the second half. It was a complete turnaround at half time.
Yeah, it was, and I dare say they haven't seen him too angry, to be honest. I would think that would contain its shock value, and I think if you want to see the desired effect that it had. You only need to see the reaction of Callum McGregor when he scores. I think that's the biggest. He was clearly angry as well. Now, whether that's the rollicking he's received for the manager or whether he himself was backing the manager up on that remains to be seen. But he's took it upon himself. I think there's starting to be a body of evidence now around justifying a start. I'm not saying dropping Kyogo. I'm thinking maybe fitting Kyogo in the 10. And again, I think the one thing you get with O is that industry. You know, he comes on, and one thing you can't level at him is a lack of effort. He's always looking to, you know, kind of probe and run the defenders. So again, you look at the players that have come on, how hard they've worked. It's quite damning on the players that have exited. Turnbull was on the periphery of the game. I think Rodgers likes him because he can score a goal. I think it's a bit alien to him to be running in behind. You can see he almost looks uncomfortable running in behind the defence in supporting the attack. He wants to play in front of him to dictate it. But with McGregor and O'Reilly playing where they play, it's a bit square peg round hole for me with Turnbull playing in the 10. I think he should be playing deeper, but he's not going to play before O'Reilly or McGregor just now, even though you might argue maybe he should, because the form of both those guys in more recent games hasn't been great. I take the point that O'Reilly's been fantastic for a good portion of the season, but I think we're just too reliant on too many players, we're too reliant on a small number of players, and if they don't play well, it really, really affects the team. McGregor, O'Reilly, Kyogo, and I think past few games Palmer's been a wee bit off it compared to some of the flashes that he's shown. That then is a real stifling of creativity in the team. If you then add to that a lack of hard work across the pitch and winning the ball back, that spells massive, massive trouble. So what I will say is, as horrid as the first half was, fair play to the team for digging it out second half.
100%. James, you'll have seen, I don't know if you bother jumping on Twitter at half time and the likes. It's always a fun place to be.
Try not to.
And a lot of the chat, which is nonsense really, I miss Ange Ball. Bring back Ange Ball.
This guy.
The arrogance of anyone thinking you can come in and change your treble winning side. Whoever replaced Ange was never going to be Ange, right? It was going to be Brendan Rodgers or another. So you can't just come in and say, we'll just do what the last guy done. That's not how football works. That's not how management works. Everyone's got their own unique style that they believe in and their own methodology. If I can feel you waiting to get in, but just give us a second. So Brendan Rodgers has got his own style, but everyone's kind of slating at half time and all that kind of stuff. Now, I very generally I will defend Brendan Rodgers because I think he's a very talented coach, so you can counter this in a minute, Miff, if you like. But you need to look at the fact that he's working with a very different squad, very different 11 specifically to what Ange had to work with last season. Now, not available to Brendan Rodgers is Jota's 15 goals and 14 assists from last season, Abada 13 goals and 14 assists, Hatate 10 goals, 11 assists, Aaron Moy 7 goals and 12 assists, and Carl Starfelt undefeated domestically, partnering Carter Vickers at the back. You could argue that going the other way in a positive sense is Louis Palmer, who's come in and had a bit of an impact, which is great. But Miff, you can't deny the fact that you're only as good as the players you've got to work with. And Brendan Rodgers currently doesn't have as strong 11 as Ange Postecoglou. That's just bottom line. What do you say to that? Yeah,
it's true. But that again, that goes back to the recruitment. It feels like we just go in circles around that. I take that point. It's on the club to replace those players when we know that they're leaving. You know, the decision to sell Starfelt looks all the more baffling by the week as we continue with Scales at centre half. And again, he's played well, but you know, we've signed two guys that are struggling to get anywhere near the team. It's just utterly bizarre, and that's why I'm saying things just aren't making a whole lot of sense. January's going to be so intriguing is to see what we do. We must at least be able to empty about 5 or 6 guys out on loan, if nothing else.
Yeah.
As an absolute bare minimum, because there must be loads of guys talking about.
Adeguchi looks like he's been nominated for J-League Player of the Year.
He's back. He's coming back end of January. That's his term.
Their season runs the calendar year. I think the writing's on the wall for Adeguchi. You never know, but to Mav's point, there's so many guys that we just need to move out. This 32-man squad we keep going on about. I
think the good thing about that with Adeguchi is it means you'll probably recoup some of the money that you've spent. So,
James, I'm just going to ask: are you concerned with the style of play, the slower approach, the fact that we mentioned that Ange loved to get off to a flyer and score early? We often scored in the first 15 minutes under Ange Postecoglou. This is a different approach. This is a more patient approach. 45 minutes worth of patience on Sunday, which isn't great. Are you concerned in general about how we're approaching it, or is it just a result of the players at Brendan Rodgers' disposal?
It's a bit of both. I'm concerned because at the end of the day, if you're going to be a Celtic manager, you need to be in the business of entertainment. That's the way it's always been. My biggest issue with it is that he's training the players up to play a certain way that does bolster you in Europe. With a bit of improved personnel, we're probably getting into Europe at least with the way that Rodgers plays in Europe. We were in all the games until the latter stages, all that stuff, apart from Madrid. The issue is then coming back to Scotland with that same formation and tactics that does you well away in Europe, but you're then doing it away in Perth. That's not necessary. The players have to be able to switch to a more, if you want, and style where it's a lot more attacking in Scotland, because just horseshoeing it around. Horseshoeing it around, it kills your buzz like you wouldn't believe, so that it can be entertaining, but the players have really got to play the most entertaining version of that horseshoe malarkey.
Yeah. Just to explain horseshoeing around for anyone that's not sure, I don't know if it's an official footballing term, but basically you got the left hand side and there's no options there. You're stifled defensively, so you need to come back and recycle through your midfield and up the right hand side, and before you know it, you're creating this constant U-shape without any great penetration, whereas with Ange it's just all guns blazing through the middle, down the wings, whatever the options are,
which gets you humped in Europe, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other side of Ange's style of play.
Some of the home games this season have been, away performances have generally been much better than home performances this season, I would say, as in for entertainment value when you were watching. I'd say the first half against St Johnstone was really quite, it was the exception. But it was so bad that I think it's got a lot of the fans backs up, because you're just like, that's far, far below the standard you expect to see from Celtic.
You can't really blame the manager on that, because he's had to go in and tear them to shreds at half time. So It's not like they're playing that way by following his instructions. They're not following his instructions.
And even at that, the players won't turn up and deliberately play badly either. But it's just, as a collective, it's just so poor. And what I will say is Rodgers' style's very different, more possession based. That's fine, but the players, we seem to be playing very, very safe. Actually, where I thought first 10 minutes we looked like we were trying to get in behind a wee bit more often and a bit quicker, and I was thinking, all right, well, great, but then we were just failing to go and win the ball back, and you're going, right, well, if we're going to give it away so cheaply and then no win it back, we'll go back to the safe possession based sort of format. It was just a wee bit over the place. But then if you're being absolutely honest about it, if you take a step back, the players are human. They've just been put out in Europe, another away performance where effort put in has been very high, but quality and output of result has been poor, and the players themselves are probably a bit like, here we go again, another 12 o'clock kick-off on a Sunday away up to Perth after it's been snowing all weekend and whatever. They're only human, but it didn't make me any less angry yesterday.
Well, that's the thing. So everyone was angry at half time, and everyone, enjoyed getting frustrated and fed up online and slating Rodgers, and that's fine. That's all very valid.
I did not enjoy being frustrated.
Okay, but everyone allowed themselves to become frustrated.
Yes.
But equally, James, there's then a very impressive second 45. So if you come out angry at the first half, should you not be coming out full of praise at the second half?
Yeah, it's a bit of a kind of a marital situation. You say, I don't want you to apologise. I want you to not do the bad thing in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the second half performance is...
You speaking to Mrs. Muff?
Second half performance was only necessary because of how bad the first half performance was. Maybe just be decent from the start. We don't need to,
just put the dishes away in the first place.
Easy, lads, easy.
Get the bins out.
I hear you. Speaking of positive impacts in the second half, James, I've been waiting a long time for the Mikey Johnston show. It's too early, Miff, to say I told you so, but the signs are there. I think for Mikey Johnston, right, so obviously he came in, had a huge impact. I thought he had a particularly clever, classy touch for the second goal, which, by the way, was a phenomenal team goal.
Yeah.
A brilliant break. The ball comes into Johnston, flicks to Kyogo, who has the composure just to roll it into O'Reilly, and what a finish by Matt O'Reilly. Go on, you go, Miff.
That's what I was going to say, the flick for Johnston and the pass for Kyogo, which is just absolutely perfect. But What a finish.
He's a weak foot.
Outstanding.
So Mikey Johnston picking up a lot of plaudits. People can't wait to give Mikey Johnston a hard time. I'd like to think and hope that people can also respect when he does have a good game and be fair about it. Don't become so entrenched in your position that you can't see when he has had a good game and accept that. Now, you don't need to say Mikey Johnston's now the answer and that's him back in the fold, but at least accept that he's had a decent game and that he might now bring something to the table. But from Mikey Johnston's point of view, and anyone on the periphery, all you can do is what he done yesterday. Come in, have an impact. And the headlines are, Mikey Johnston changed the game. You'll have seen the interview post-match, Smith, where he was tasked with presenting Callum McGregor with his trophy for man of the match. He gave it to Callum McGregor, and Callum McGregor, kind of jokingly, almost off camera, says, "Thanks, mate, I'll give it back later." As in, you were man of the match. So, should Mikey Johnston certainly be starting on Wednesday, Miff? And what was your general take on his impact against St Johnstone?
I would say he should be starting because he's come off the bench and done the business. Now, it's a moot point as to whether or not that should be the case. We should have more quality in the squad where we're not relying on Mikey Johnston, but he's taking his chance, in my opinion. He's come off the bench and made a difference when the team was struggling. So I think it's only fair. Rodgers seems to be angry, not only at that performance, but he seems to be levelling a bit of criticism at the guys that have been left out of squads because he's saying they're not showing it in training, that they deserve to be in match squads.
He named them, didn't he?
So
Lagerbielke.
In Navroki and Telio.
Yeah.
So
you're all fit.
So that would suggest to me that somebody like Mikey Johnston, we were questioning earlier in the season about Rodgers' use of the squad and the subs that he was selecting. It was all a bit bizarre and saying, well, Johnston's in for the Champions League and then he's not in for league squads, and then all of a sudden he is starting to appear in league squads, and it's coming down to, I would imagine, Johnston having had the benefit of working under Rodgers before and knowing the intensity that he's expected to train at. He's back, he looks fit. He's been getting more and more minutes as the weeks have been passing, and I think that's Rodgers sending a message to the rest of the squad to say, if you come in and show the application that I need, the work rate that I need, the intensity that I need, then you'll get your chances. So fair play to him, but it goes back to the overall point for me is just that summer window is an absolute disgrace.
Fair enough. But James, just to stay with Mikey for as long as I possibly can.
I can't help myself. I just can't help.
I think, and listen, I would say this anyway, but I think you've got to give Mikey Yang's minutes. You know what they both can offer, and at the moment Yang is just not ready. But you do know that Mikey on his day can have a real impact. And I think it's unfair is not the right term. You don't get anything for nothing at Celtic, but so far Mikey Johnston's only ever been thrown in the mix when Celtic need a goal. We've been chasing a winner or chasing an equaliser. And St Johnstone's another example. We're 1-0 down at half time. Right on you go and shows what you can do. And I think just on that basis alone, he deserves a start against Hibs. You're at Celtic Park and it's an opportunity to go and show again what you're capable of. But this is a real challenge for Mikey Johnston. Celtic Park's where he probably suffers most at this moment in time. There's a negativity when he gets on the ball. There's an air of what's going to happen here, every time he picks it up. I think, this isn't for me to say anybody, but I think as a fan you've got a role to play. Surely we want all our players to perform, Mikey or otherwise. So surely you've got to support them to give them the best possible chance of doing so. And I'd like to think and hope that the fans will get on side with Mikey if he starts on Wednesday, which I think he should, and we can see where he goes from there.
I think he will start on Wednesday, and I agree. I think a level of patience is required, and because the one thing he does and has done in the last two games he's come on is drive. He drives at players and he makes them commit, and he gets balls in. He was really unlucky not to score as well with his head yesterday. It was just the one that came flying across him, and that would have just capped a great performance. I'm not really that interested in telling fans how to support. They support how they want to support.
Come on, just do it.
No, I'm not doing that, because that's up to the player. For me, the responsibility is on the player to turn the fans around, not for the fans to just change their mind and give you more support, because they've had a lot of time with them. Their frustration hasn't borne out of nothing. So it's Mikey's job to turn it around, not the fans' job to turn it on him.
It's similar to what Brendan Rodgers said recently, that he was asked about the fan situation with the Green Brigade, to not being there to create atmosphere, and he says, well, listen, it's up to us in the park to create atmosphere. Yep. So I get that. It's not just a given that because you're wearing a green and white shirt, people cheer your every move. So of course there's an onus on Mikey Johnston. I'm just putting out a plea for a bit of patience with him, or at least don't groan when the ball's coming at his feet.
But the thing is, we're a wee bit, with the world of the horseshoe, we're a wee bit starved of guys to drive at people, and Mikey Johnston's doing that. So that is the kind of thing that gets the fans on side. You know, you don't have a Jota going at guys, and we really miss that. Mikey is going at them. So, you know, if he gets his start on Wednesday, what he really needs is to be in a game where he just runs the whole show. You know, he was heavily influential on Sunday and getting the win, of course, but I mean, run the show from start to finish.
Yeah, and he was really positive against Lazio. The first thing he done, the very first impact he had was to get the ball, drive past a couple of guys and make his win at the box, and that's the only type of thing he can do. And hopefully he does get that opportunity on Wednesday, excuse me, to do so. Miff, you rightly mentioned Navrocki, Lagerbielke and Tillio. So Brendan Rodgers was speaking today, early press conference for whatever reason, Monday, and he was asked about fitness and availability, and he said, listen, these guys are all fit. You know, he wasn't making any excuse for them. They just need to work harder and do more in training to impress. And to be honest, he was refreshingly honest, because it's easy as a manager to say, oh, they're just getting back to fitness and just finding their feet and they're adjusting to the culture or whatever.
Back in the grass.
But he's basically saying these guys are fit. They're just not showing me enough at this moment in time. And I like that. Between that and his rant at half time, I think I like Brendan Rodgers or any manager to be a wee bit spiky and not to play all the kind of platitudes and safeties. You know, go for it when it's required. And I think he's now letting himself go a bit, and I'm all for it.
Well, that yes, great, and I'm delighted you're happy at spiky Brendan, but for me it just takes me back to the summer and just goes, well, what the hell was that all about?
But this is his kind of third rant of the week, is after Lazio he's saying we wanted 4 quality players, we get 0 quality players. We get 9 development guys, you know, so that was a real direct. And I think Bridle was saying he mentioned Desmond within that conversation. It's almost like, I'm telling Daff, you two don't fuck up your ideas, you know. So pointed for Mick there.
Yeah, but I tell you why, because he'll be feeling annoyed at the criticism that's coming his way. He's getting this poor Champions League level thrown at him, and again, yeah, you know, it's fact that he's failed in X amount of Champions League games, but with a squad, particularly the one that he's inherited at this moment in time, you're set up to fail. That's the bottom line. So Rodgers is annoyed, I think, at the criticism coming his way, and you're just seeing the natural reaction to that.
Yes, yeah. For me, you need to remember that there is still a good portion of last season's treble winning team there. I don't think it's acceptable for him just to kind of sidestep it.
What starters from yesterday, for example, were regular starters in the treble?
Hart, plenty.
Johnson, Vickers, Taylor, McGregor.
Really?
No necessarily really Kyogo.
So there's about 4 or 5 missing there.
The 4 quality he asked for.
4 proper quality players.
Aye, but the majority of the team is still the team that won.
But there's a lot of players you can't trust within that. So I can't trust Hart now. Can't trust Taylor.
Well, this is the thing.
There's a lot of creativity missing.
Things have changed, and ultimately he's responsible for the way that we play. What I'm saying is there's a lot of factors that have led us to look a wee bit off this season and probably contributed to why we didn't achieve as much as we would have liked in the Champions League. Certainly, I still think the performances were fairly decent over the piece. I think there's only really one game that stands out as being bad, but I think that even though there was plenty of games left, that last minute equaliser, last minute loss to Lazio was a real gut punch.
Yeah, because
we just really should have managed that out. But I just don't think the manager is entirely blameless. I think he came back and has told us that he was involved. He was offered, or these players were ran past him. He's accepted them, and he's seen fit not to play them. He doesn't think they're of the required quality. So what are we going to do about it? Because what's clear is, if we go through the season relying on the players that we're currently relying on, more slip-ups are going to happen, because they can't, there's too small a core of players. They can't just keep doing it week in, week out. And I take your point about you're missing a Jota, you're missing a Hatate, you're Moy, Abada. Even if you go back the season before, somebody like Giacomakis, it was coming off the bench and scoring goals, but we've not got that currently. So January's the time for us to do something about it. Really important run of games coming up. We just really, really need to dig it out.
Do you trust Celtic to do it in January?
No, absolutely not.
I trust him not to.
James and I done the pre-match ahead of St Johnstone, and we asked the question, would he use this opportunity to freshen up the squad, bring in Navarrete, make a couple of changes, midfield or otherwise? And actually, I think Rodgers is kind of repeatedly using the same 13, maybe 14 players. He doesn't trust his extended squad enough. He clearly doesn't, at this moment in time, trust Navarrete and Lagerbielke, for example, and there's clearly others in the mix there. And I think it's not just, I'll just play these guys and the board can see that I'm struggling, but I think he himself can only hang his hat on so many players, and there's just this real lack of quality. There's 32 bodies there in his squad. There's probably only about 14, 15 he trusts on any given match day, and he'd like to improve on that. Tell you what we'll do, we'll take a wee break from all of that, and we'll go to the mystery cell, which this week comes from Miff. So Miff, go for it. Let's hear your clues, and we'll see if we can work out the man in question.
Excuse me while I refer to my notes here.
Very good.
I think you'll get this. As well as playing in Scotland, I've played in Croatia, Spain and Belgium.
Okay.
I joined Getafe when I left Celtic.
Mika.
Stefan Šepović.
I am currently playing in the Thai League.
I'd stick with Šepović.
Šepović is the one that jumps out.
And finally, I accidentally locked myself in a toilet, missing a friendly when I played for Club Brugge.
Bruges.
That sounds like something Jack Henry would do at Club Brugge, but I don't think it's him.
So I'll repeat them.
Yeah, go
or
for
are you
it.
going to do your wee...
No, you can
Look at how...
Aye, create the space.
I have played in Croatia, Spain and Belgium. I joined Getafe when I left Celtic. I am currently playing in the Thai League. That's Thailand. I accidentally locked myself in a toilet, missing a friendly when I played for Club Brugge.
Guidetti.
John Guidetti jumped in there as well. I don't know. Guidetti and Šepović.
I think Guidetti went to Getafe after Celtic.
Getafe.
Yeah.
That's the guesses for now, Miff. So we'll come back to you towards the end of the show. Then you can reveal all and see if there's any gloating to be done if you've managed to bamboozle us.
Well.
Okay, we'll kick on for now. Key question that came out on Sunday, and we've been asking it for some time now. But generally, is it time to see more Tomoki Iwata? Obviously, Miff played a key part in the third goal, and listen, a very good contribution. He broke free. done well to hold it up in the halfway line. Tomoki breaks forward, puts it in a plate for Jamesy. On you go.
It's just a resounding yes. We need to see more of him. I don't...
But what's your midfield makeup then?
Hold on a second. Just as part of the question, do we need to see more of Tomoki? And also, did Callum McGregor's strike, brilliant as it was, paper over the cracks of another questionable performance?
It wasn't great, but in the Iwata question, I don't know what he's done or not done to deserve more minutes, given that, the likes of Holm and Bernardo have drifted in and drifted out, not really nailed it down. Turnbull, has he nailed it down? No.
It's because they're more advanced midfielders, though, isn't it? It's because Tomoko plays Kalmak's position, and there's a real reluctance to drop
I think
Kalmak.
what you're saying, he's got the ability to go box to box. I don't think it would inconvenience him to be playing further up the pitch. He's got an engine. He's strong. He's got an eye for a pass as well. I'd be putting him in there. If you watch the way that he's broke forward for that goal, he's read what's going on, he's anticipated, and he's absolutely burst himself to get there. If you're talking about, if Rodgers is true to his word about players showing him that they deserve to be playing, if you're given over the course of 2 months, 2 15-minute cameos where you've scored and assisted and looked like a really good player, what more do you need to do?
What else can you do? James, do you think it's the ball cut that's holding him back?
I think that's what got him in the squad on Saturday.
It's a ball cut / skin fade. It's something else.
Tremendous.
It's really good. But to Miff's point, I mentioned Mikey Johnston. All you can do is come in and have an impact. And I think Tomoki Iwata is doing that. And I know there's question marks over maybe some of the contributions that we've seen from Thiago Holm, maybe Bernardo at times, Kwon's much further out the picture. But by and large, when Tomoki Iwata takes to the field, and I include last season's cameos in that, he's impressed. It's not like he's come on and really struggled in any game for in a Celtic shirt.
I absolutely doff my cap to your continued mention of Quan on this podcast.
I know.
You are absolutely holding out hope for your man. Definitely.
As long as Quan's here, I'll be
fighting
his corner.
It's even like he's even in the conversation. That 45 minutes against Bilbao, man, he has been like on your way.
But again, like Quan, you can't have absolutely nothing about you, surely. You must have something.
I mean,
so at least
questions are being asked of our recruitment team talent. So it's very possible that it doesn't.
It's a hell of a bit of scouting and recruitment if you've just went, do you know what, we're getting young, we might as well get this other guy for South Korea.
I said this before, he was decent against Wales, he was god awful against Bilbao, but it must be what he's doing or not doing in training that's keeping him well out of the picture, you know.
He must be having a mare at
But aye, maybe he's locked in the toilet. This points back to Tomoki as well, and maybe Mikey, that you can show up and do well in games, and that's obviously what we want you to do, but you're saying what more can you do? You need to be excellent in training for Rodgers, and if you're not going to be at it. I can't imagine Tomoki isn't turning up and giving it all in training. He just seems a committed kind of guy.
He does. And he's a powerhouse, he's a fit,
he's
powerful guy.
What Rodgers tells us he admires in a midfielder. He's athletic, he's physical, a big strong guy. I think it's time, but we need to nail down a midfield three. You know, we're sitting here well into the season, we're going, who's your midfield three today? Don't know.
I've been saying this repeatedly now. Brendan Rodgers trusts Callum McGregor, of course he does, he's his captain. Trusts Matt O'Reilly. Doesn't have a third man myth that he can hang his hat on, whether it's any of the guys I've mentioned, Quan or Thiago Holm, Bernardo Iwata. He doesn't seem ready to give any of them a shot. And I think of all of those different guys have shown up in fits and starts, I think Iwata has consistently shown decent stuff.
I was just going to say, Quan could be sitting right next to you, you wouldn't even know what it looks like.
The Quan's a good friend of mine.
He's listen. Yeah, again we end up back at summer. That's where it's all revolving round. We end up back there, whether we're mentioning Quan, whether we're talking about the lack of depth in the wide areas. You know, you talk about the horseshoe. If you look at a pitch map for Palma, it would be an L shape down the line, cut inside, down the line, cut inside. You know, the few times it has went on the outside or played in the overlap, it's created opportunity, but he just seems he just wants to get his shot away all the time. But I think he's going to need to learn, especially playing with the packed defences in Scotland, he's going to need to change it up a wee bit as well. Some of Palma's contributions have been exceptional. I hold out a great deal of hope for him. I just need him to give us a bit more, especially when if you look back on Jota's time at Celtic, he produced big moments consistently. That we kind of need Palma to be getting into that territory.
Jota turned in some bad games.
He did, but he would.
You're always remembered for big moments and big games.
That's the thing. He always showed up when required. You know, against them in Europe and stuff like that. He was always reliable for that. And Young's maybe not. Palmer's maybe not had that opportunity because it's so early. But I do remember Jota turning in some stinkers as well at the more mundane matches.
Yep.
But I think you can level that criticism at guys like Samaras as well. Some guys
100%.
just thrive on the big game opportunity. Louis Palma was shown against Atletico Madrid, showed it particularly at home, that strike. His effort against Lazio that was rightly ruled out, of course, but he's had the big moments in the big games. He's not had the opportunity to play Rangers yet. I think was he signed after we played them, or he was on the bench? Sorry, wasn't he?
He wasn't fit enough.
He was on the bench for that one, so we'll see where it gets to. 30th of December, he's going to be in the lineup if he's fit and available for that one. So there's a chance for him to show what he can offer. But I don't think anyone would question the fact that he hit the heights against Atletico Madrid and a couple of games before and after that. But almost as quickly, he's gone very quiet, hasn't he? He's not given us a great deal there on Sunday against St Johnstone, for example. The question I was going to ask, just away from guys like Tomo, as Brendan Rodgers calls him, which I like, but so Tomo certainly is, he's due a start at some point. Again, you can only do so much in 10, 15, 20 minute cameos. I think at home to Hibs is a decent opportunity actually on you go.
My question around this is, if you take McGregor out of that squad for yesterday, say, right, and we turn in a stinking performance in the first half, who is on the pitch to drag you through? I mean, McGregor's goal is what got us moving again. Who is on the pitch as your stand-in captain to do the stuff that McGregor does that isn't really play related? It's supporting and driving. So that it's missing that part. I'm not saying I'm not open to it. I very much am, but you've got to bear in mind you're losing that part of it as well.
Is it too soon to make Quan club captain? Is it? No, I think you're right. And we've had this debate. It's not just what Callum McGregor gives you in a footballing sense. He is very much the leader in that dressing room. You see the way he's constantly, encouraging teammates and cajoling guys out and directing traffic from the midfield. So there's that vocal element that he brings. There's no getting away for that, and that would be the question. Can you remove that from your first 11 and put Tomoki in and not see a negative impact? That's a dilemma for Brendan Rodgers. The other dilemma is the headlines that come with dropping your club captain. The West of Scotland, people are just waiting to come down on you. And if you remove Callum McGregor and get anything less than 3 points or even a resounding win, then you're opening yourself out there. I
think given the amount of football McGregor's played over the last 5-6 years, it's an easy, this guy needs some time to just recuperate, So papers are going to give us negative enemy. So what kind of thing? We'll make up our own minds on that. But I think we should be able to take McGregor out of the squad just for his own good and ours and let him get some recuperation time. But then is it going to be Iwata, O'Reilly, and you've still got your untrusted third?
Yeah, we'll need to see what he does come Wednesday.
But is the alternative Iwata, O'Reilly, and see if McGregor still get the legs for an 8?
I'd like to see him in the 8. Would you be keen to see him a bit more advanced?
Yeah, well, I did say that. I said that last year. Probably more so this year because his performances. I just think he's got more to offer than just sort of recycling. I
think that goal reminded us a wee bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He gets into the right areas.
The games continue to come thick and fast. We've mentioned Hibs on Wednesday and it's Kilmarnock on Sunday. So away at Rugby Park, 12 o'clock kickoff. One to look forward to.
They're replacing their plastic pitch in 2026.
I was going to say in a couple of years' time.
Man. Yeah. Get the tractors in the summer.
Yeah. The question was put to Brendan Rodgers before St Johnstone. He was asked, how he'll approach it, and he said something along the lines of, we'll need to start quick, we'll need to come out the traps fast. That clearly didn't play out at McDiarmid Park. But he was asked again almost facetiously today, and how are you going to approach this one, Brendan? And he kind of laughed and says, we'll come out quick again. Much hilarity. But on that, James, do you think, based on what we've now seen as a bit of spiky Brendan
and hilarious Brendan, gift that keeps on giving.
But James, you've obviously seen he's been frustrated at half time. He's expressed further frustration in his pre-match press conference. Do you think we'll see an immediate response from the players from the start against Hibs?
I think you're going to see some change in personnel for a start.
Do you?
Yeah, I think he's been trusting guys that aren't giving it back. So I'm not sure who those people are. We'll maybe look at that in the pre-match. But
do you think his fullbacks are on the firing line?
I think you're struggling for options there. I mean, I'm a huge Tony Ralston fan, but I'm always going to put Johnston in front of him. I just think he's a slightly better player, a better player. He's international for Canada and stuff. So Taylor, I would love to see that changed, but you're going to put Scales in there? Probably not. Does Navrocki or Lagerbielke going to take Scales' place? Not based on the talk today.
Alejandro.
No.
So, time for Bernabe?
As long as he gets the bus there.
Yeah. There's there doesn't seem to be any sign of Alessandro either. What do you think we'll see against Hibs? Hibs are in a decent place to beat Aberdeen 2-0 there on Sunday. They've slowly but surely been kind of getting themselves together under Nick Montgomery, who plays a very Ange type risky possession game, playing out from the goalkeeper. And you lads probably watched a bit of Spurs Man City yesterday. It looks even more risky what Spurs are doing than what we done, but that's a separate issue. And for Hibs under Montgomery, it's one thing wanting to play that way, but it's another thing when you've got Hibs players trying to do it. With all respect, you need to have the personnel, so it could play into Celtic's hands on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think you need to give a bit of respect to Hibs in the fact that they've improved massively. Obviously, we've played them already this season, failed to score against them. So, I'm looking forward to the game on Wednesday night, and I'm expecting a reaction. Whether I get it or not is a different thing. I would imagine there'll be some small changes, but I don't think it'll be anything major. I think it might be a start for O
instead of Kyogo.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he'll maybe play Kyogo in the 10, or maybe just rest him. Just given that he's played a lot of football, as in rest him to bring him on, obviously. And I think you might actually see Iwata. I think Iwata and Johnson are the other two that I think will probably start. I'll be very surprised if Yang starts.
Aye.
Brendan Rodgers was asked specifically about potentially playing two up top, O and Kyogo, and he said he was open to that, whether from the start of the game or otherwise. But against St Johnstone, it showed it can play a part. And I don't think any manager should say this is how I set up every single time, and I'm not going to bend on that. Although Ange does do that. But Brendan Rodgers is saying, if I can see an opportunity where, the need for a deep line midfielder at Celtic Park, not always a requirement, maybe less so with Hibs, who might come out and have a go, But if you're up against, I don't know, St Johnstone, Dundee, these kind of teams at Celtic Park, you don't need Callum McGregor sitting just in front of your back four, do you?
I don't know. I mean, Martin Boyle, a striker I like, fast, pacey, likes a ball over the top, might need to be protecting stuff like that. So I don't know. I think against St Johnstone and other teams, yeah, maybe it's something I wouldn't be too risky with against Hibs, because they can get at you on the break. They are playing fast football, and then taking your six out, or your six being less present, it could cause you problems. So I don't think he's going to go any like 3-5-2 or anything like that. I think it'll be a 4-3-3. I don't see Kyogo dropping into the 10. I'd happier see O starting, and I'm not a fan of how far along O is in his development. He's got miles to go, but there's been a lot of talk from ourselves in the last few weeks that Kyogo's not been getting the service. He's it's not him, it's the service he's getting. He actually did get fairly decent service yesterday. A couple of them were offside, but he didn't know that, and he didn't finish them. So it's maybe just time to take a wee break, let O in, and see what we can do. It's
a bit of a combo with Kyogo at the moment. He's not getting great service, but he's also not in his best form. There's not going to be for that.
The one he should have lifted the goalie. He scores that last year all day.
Yeah, but again, every player is forgivable if they go through a dip. He's been so consistent for us over a long period of time, but it's now time for other players to step up and provide a similar level of quality and consistency. Now, whether they can do that or not is what we'll see over the next few weeks. But yeah, I would try and get both of them in the team if possible.
What I thought was interesting about Brendan Rodgers' press conference, it sounds like that's all I've done all day, just listen to that press conference on repeat.
Sounds like it.
But he didn't describe his wide players as wingers, whether it was Mikey Johnston, Louis Palmer, James Forrest Young. He called them his wide strikers, which I thought was interesting.
It's a range thing.
He sees it as 3 strikers, a central one and 2 guys up alongside that, as opposed to traditional wingers who hang about on the touchline and get to the byline. That's not how Celtic's wingers play. It's a different approach altogether here.
Yeah, I mean, traditional wingers is more in a 4-man midfield. You got one left, one right, kind of thing. So I can see why he would describe it that way. But that's maybe using the right words in the squad to let these players know, I'm expecting you to contribute to goals, because you were talking about how Rodgers wants goals from all over the squad, not just from his central striker. So it's maybe just reinforcing to them that there's a weight of expectation on you.
Yeah, Miff, you rightfully highlighted that Celtic have maintained that 8-point gap at the top of the table. Rangers obviously have a game in hand, which could see it reduced to 5. But do you anticipate Celtic getting 2 wins from 2 this week? Home to Hibs, away to Killie?
I would hope so, but they're actually 2 really tough games. Hibs because they're improving, and Killie because it's Rodgers' teams have not played well away to Killie. It's that simple. So I am fearful that along the way we will drop points, just because if there's another repeat of the first half performance against St Johnstone, we might find ourselves too far behind in a game.
Yeah, James, do you see 6 points from 6?
I think that half-time team talk is pointing towards getting 6 from 6, because players just know anything less than 100%, you're going to end up getting bombed out in January.
Yeah,
it's too close to the window.
I like the fact that he's pointed out when talking about it. Brendan Rodgers has said that it's important that these guys remember where they are and who they're playing for, and I think that is reassuring to know that, listen, these guys are very well paid and stuff, but maybe Miff touched on the fact that it's human nature at times. Played a lot of games, you're out of Europe, you're going to places like Perth on a pretty kind of poor day weather-wise and all that stuff, but you've got to remember you're very handsomely paid to represent Celtic, and I think you're right. I think it could be a timely reminder at a key point in the season.
Yeah, and it is, it's this time of year, when points can be shipped, because it's just it's poor weather, it's dark nights, it's the team's not really been, it's not flowing, and it's time for that to just click, because the talent's all there, and the strategy's there, and the manager's there. There's no reason why this team shouldn't be just banging in 3 points every week. So the one big thing about Hibs games as opposed to Sunday is Hibs games are generally enjoyable football spectacles. So I don't see any turgid stuff like we got on Sunday against St Johnstone. The Kilmarnock game is just going to be carbon copy St Johnstone, war of attrition, probably even more so.
Yeah, some enjoyable Sunday lunchtime viewing. Last point I want to make before we start to head towards Miff's mystery Celt answer. I'm intrigued on that. It's something that I know concerned you, James. It was Brendan Rodgers speaking, I think, the morning after the Lazio loss, which obviously seen his exit Europe again, all too early. But it was the fact that he mentioned listen, it's going to take another window or two before I start to see my team. So are you concerned that it's almost given Celtic a pass, or is he almost kind of setting our expectations that January's not going to be the time we see these key signings, and we're going to have to wait for the January window and the summer window, and then we'll start to see a Brendan Rodgers side? Is that a concern for you?
I think that's exactly what it is. We might get one in January just to kind of shut us up a wee bit, but I don't see the wholesale surgery this squad needs getting done in January. Those 4 quality players, and the one that we signed obviously has to be quality. You can't be giving us any more nonsense. They know that ship has sailed. And it's also going the other way. Is there's a whole list. We'll need to go through the squad at some point next week or the week after and say, right, keep, sell, whatever kind of thing. But yeah, we're being softened up there, 100%. Rodgers has always said, he finds the January transfer window tough. It's a much tighter window, but that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
The window is just the time to do the deal. My recruitment team should have been on this. They should be on it well before the summer, because they didn't do anything there. So where's the 4 quality players that you didn't sign? Because you can go and get them in January. Do
you know what? I'm fed up with clubs and managers saying it's a tough window, Miff. Yeah, it's tough, but I said it during the week to somebody. Work harder then. Go and earn your big bucks, because you get well paid to be working in recruitment at Celtic.
Don't wish the goal was smaller, wish you were better.
Yeah.
Whoa. Jake Humphries.
I like it.
Jake Humphries.
World class basics.
It's not Jake Humphries.
Oh, man.
But no, yeah, it's a tough window. I get that. It's harder than summer. But Matt O'Reilly came in a January window. Alistair Johnson, Dyson Maeda, Rio Hatate. You can get good players in that window. So there's no excuse really to not go out and pick up a couple of bits of quality if you're willing to do so.
That window, those 2 windows of Giakoumakis, Jota, Vickers, Hatate, O'Reilly, Maeda, back to back, have glossed over a lot of poor recruitment since then.
Well, but they've also shown you what's possible.
No, yeah, that O'Reilly, Hatate, Maeda window was a January window.
A league winner.
And just first 2 windows were exceptional. You probably had, 8 successes out of 9 or 10, something like that.
Starfelt was in there as well.
Yeah. What still really annoys me? For the first time in our Celtic supporting lives, we were doing it right.
Yep.
And it was working. Yep. And we were getting results from it. And, they just Celtic'd it and went, nah, we're going to change that. Yeah. Why? Why would you do that, man?
I think there was a direct correlation between that and the return of a certain chairman.
Oh. And offspring of.
Yeah, there you go. Hope you're not trying to suggest that Peter Lawwell would have any influence over Mark Lawwell.
I've said nothing. I've said enough.
Just to go back to the question on Brendan Rodgers. So James mentioned the term. He's softening us up for a couple more kind of windows before he gets the team that he wants. Do you think it's a part of that also is just a plea for patience from Brendan Rodgers, as if to say, listen, I inherited what I inherited, but you need to give us time before I can get my own team on the park?
Didn't inherit it though.
Didn't
inherit it. Like he's been part of those players signing. He should be saying, don't sign him.
Aye. Tino's message here is, Brendan's alright, spiky Brendan, hilarious Brendan's fine, just leave my lane, lads, and let him go on with it. Nothing's his fault.
I'm a huge Brendan Rodgers fan, but I don't think you can say you can't use the term inherited, because he was there when those players were signed. So it's for him to be strong and say, don't be signing that guy for my squad.
Also the rest of them had won a treble.
Aye. Well, there's a lot of quality going out as well, come on, be fair.
No, but we know for sure, for example, that Marco Tilio has been on the radar for a couple of years. So Brendan Rodgers toed the party line, AGM and otherwise. He's come in and said, listen, I get final say on signings. But actually, it's bearing out that it's just not true for some of them.
The final say is I'm not playing them.
Did you ever your eye mask on when you were watching the Quan videos? Jeez, man, come on.
But there's the thing, I don't think he's responsible for Tilio or Yang or Quan. I think they've been part of Celtic exploring that Asian market. And I think as the front man, he has to say, yeah, we're all in unison here and I sign off on these players. But here's a question for you then as a manager. If you got offered 4 question mark players or none at all, you take the 4 and say, all right, I'll see what I've got. But ultimately he's taken the 4, and guys like Navroke and Tilio and Lagerbielke, as an example, aren't featured.
If Celtic are running their club and their recruitment policies so badly, them options are 4 players or no players. There's got to be an option C in there, come on.
But here's a question for you.
But maybe Brendan Rodgers wasn't given the option C. That's what I'm saying. We just don't know how that's played out behind the scenes.
The mystery box.
Yeah.
But we have to be better than we are. And I mean recruitment team.
World class basics.
World class basics. Okay, listen, that's a bigger debate for another week as well. But you've made your feelings very clear, James and Miff. We know how you feel about Brendan, so we'll kick on. Miff, to wrap things up, let's hear your answer to the mystery cell. Do you want to give us a very quick reminder of the clues?
Getafe.
Oh, signed for Getafe, played in
Belgium and Germany.
Spain, Belgium and Croatia. Locked himself in a toilet while playing for Club Bruges.
I will go Skepovic. That was my big guess.
Bonus
Clue.
His dad scored against Celtic.
For who?
Now wait a minute.
It was not Skepovic's dad.
Correct.
Scored for
Well
Belgrade.
Stefan Skepovic. Yep, scored in the 5-4 game.
Got you.
How does it feel to be in the winning side? You like it?
I'm never.
How does it feel to have had the clues handed to you fairly? Fantastic.
It's a decent one. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll share it on social as well, and we'll see how many of the Twitter followers pick up on that one. But decent clues, and well done to me for getting the answer correct. James, your final comments as we start to wrap up this week's show.
Yeah, 2 big games coming up. You know, just it's a time of year to dig in and get the points on the board. We're only 3 weeks on Friday away from the Glasgow Derby. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I want to look forward to. My last word, as almost always, goes to you.
Yeah, bring on the next 2 games. Let's see the reaction for the players. You know, maybe a wee bit. They're a bit fired up. You know, blood's pumping. Let's see it, lads.
Yeah. Spiky players.
That's what Spiky Brendan does to guys. So that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Miff for joining me, and of course our thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back with our pre and post match shows ahead of Hibs and Kilmarnock, James, Kilmarnock this weekend. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for supporting the Celtic Exchange, and we'll see you again very soon.